And dark matter, that's an interesting one because we hear more and more customers that are just dying to get off dark matter in power. They went through a period like 5 or 6 years ago where they launched this Empower Now concept of a fully configured out of the box Empower. But at the end of the day, Empower is a massive toolkit system, and they went down market into small to medium sized credit unions and locked them into 6 7 year contracts, and they're just struggling even to keep the thing running because it takes such a high technical expertise to run that system. Where we have a customer we took off of dark matter about a year ago, and they were spending upwards of $350,000 a year in engineering level administration support just to keep the system running. And this is an organization that was doing 300, 400 loans a month. They weren't very big, and it was costing them upwards of $400,000 a year just to maintain, administer, and operate the platform. And then the complexity that goes along with that. Again, it's not a simple, drag, drop down administration workflow. It actually takes engineering expertise to maintain and administer that system. Again, adding to the cost of supporting the platform. And then high implementation failure rate. We've been told there's, upwards of 50% of implementations fail, and if they don't, then many times it takes a much higher investment than the organization has anticipated, and ends up taking a lot longer than they had anticipated. So where they might have done some level of ROI analysis, the reality of that isn't realized. And then moving over to MeridianLink, again, configurable workflows, engineering light. We have a no-code custom screen designer that's all widgety, drag and drop, where people can create any type of customized user experience with zero engineering expertise. It's all really, when David designed all this, he really took into account what's the everyday user that's interacting with the system, what's going to be functional to them to make it easy for them to administer the system and create the experiences they want to make when they're operating in the business, that they're folks that work in the operations and don't have technical expertise to build workflow, automation, rule code, and things like that. That's how it's designed, to make it really easy for customers to take advantage of the advanced features, but in layman's language. And then simplicity with scalable execution. I think I mentioned earlier, we're 100% cloud native, multi-tenant, the system's lightning fast, all the system resources auto scale. So it doesn't, there's never an issue of somebody outgrowing the system. We have customers that started out doing, 50, 100 loans a month and have grown to over 1,000 loans a month. And they were able to do that very effectively and efficiently on the same system without making additional investment in customization, just expanding their use of the advanced features that are native to the system for everyone to take advantage of. And then fast to implement. I mentioned 58 days. Like I said, nobody wants to have 58 days to implement a system. It's not fun for anyone on either side of the process. But the point being, if it has to happen, it can happen. Certainly a more comfortable pace is doing some project analysis and building out a project plan that would be somewhere in the 3 to 6 month range, depending on the size and overall scope of the organization. But it's not a massive lift. We have a great implementation team that we assign an implementation specialist and a project manager. They develop a project plan for every deployment with all deliverables from our perspective, the customer's perspective, all tied into an agreed upon go live date. And that process is managed very tightly. So we're seeing a lot of success. Certainly, There's not a month that goes by that we're not winning business against ice and dark matter. There's probably not a month that goes by that we're not unseating somebody off of ice. Less so on dark matter. There's not a large logo scope to them.